Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Telford United.
Telford United began a new era at the start of the 1992-93 season. No longer at the helm was the man who had become synonymous with the club, guiding them through thick and thin as the nation became aware of the team from the Bucks Head. That man was Gerald Smith. After nearly 2 decades, he resigned as chairman of Telford United Football Club, a task he lived and breathed.
You could never have expected Telford to become such a great cup side. Wembley, FA Cup glory, I mean, even you couldn't have dreamt that.
No, I couldn't have dreamt it really at the particular time. All I felt we would always give it our best shot. But on the analysis after it, I feel that had I have known that, we might have even done better, because Stan Staunton, myself and Brian Dankett worked in the early stages of the wonderful team. We had a great working relationship. We spent hours and hours on the telephone, and they did one part of the business, I did another, and there's a lot of work to be done behind the scenes, as I said earlier on. Preparation of players, preparation of what they do, where they eat, and just keeping them occupied, and numerous things like that. And we had this sort of thing of taking the pressure off the players.
Gerald Smith is now the club president, being interviewed there by James Bond at BBC Radio Shropshire. Tony Esp was elected as the club's new chairman, whilst joining his board of directors at the Bucks Head was the chairman and managing director of the club's main sponsor, Blockleys. That's Brian Taylor. 2 men who, to state the least, are not short of a few quid. However, thoughts of multi-thousand-pound signings to help the club get into the Football League are not the immediate aim of Tony Esp and his board.
We're obviously in a situation where there's not a lot of spare cash available, but as I've already said before, we immediate ambitions are to make the club a happy place and financially viable. And if we can establish those 2 things, the rest of the things that we wish to achieve will come along much easier.
Now, the other week you were down at High Wycombe, or Wycombe Wanderers ground, and you saw a beautiful stadium down there. Is this in the long term perhaps an ambition that you, Brian Taylor, would possibly have?
Well, I think that's a long way off. That's not even something that we consider at this stage. We've got the immediate problem of the financial situation, as Tony said, and all the board are working hard to try and resurrect some financial stability to the club, because I think over the last 3 or 4 years, that's put a lot of pressure on the board, on the team, perhaps on the supporters, where the club's been short of cash. They've had a lot of pressure on the administration of the club in that particular position. I think it's probably let the club run down a little bit. The little keenness has gone because they felt that, well, the money's not there to go and develop the team. So really, we've come in and really we're looking at it as starting from scratch. We've got to put in things. We've had a rights issue of shares, which has been reasonably well taken up. There's money coming into the club from other sources.
Well, you say other sources, the lottery, for example.
Of course. I mean, we've got great hopes for that. We've been to Boston a couple of times. We've seen what they've done in 3 years. And they're putting something like £1,500, £2,000 a week into the club. And that's what we aim to do over a period of time. But it's got off to a good start, and I think within 6-9 months, we'll be looking to making a very good financial contribution. And there's other things, we're trying to get close to the supporters, increase the gate, of course, which is, again, financially one way of greatly increasing income to the club.
With the new season fast approaching, team manager Jerry Daly arranged for a build-up match against First Division opposition. Tranmere Rovers were the opponents, complete with none other than John Aldridge. Telford gave a good account of themselves, and Tranmere were held to a 2-2 draw. Aldridge, who else, was one of their scorers. Shrewsbury Town overcame Bridgnorth Town in the Shropshire Senior Cup semi-final, so it was John Bond's side that provided the opposition for the final held at the Bucks Head. Telford beating them and making it a proud day for the club. Could they add to the silverware? Time would tell, as FA Cup, FA Trophy and Drinkwise Cup competitions had been entered. The new Vauxhall Conference season got underway with a long trip to Welling United. It was a good start, Telford winning 3-1, Ian Bembo getting on the score sheet. There have been many departures from the playing side of the club, and Jerry Daly continued to bring in new faces as he went about the task of rebuilding his team. The first conference match of the season at home was against Whitton Albion. The Cheshire side came at Telford, and no matter how many chances Telford had in that game, and they had many, poor finishing and an inspired display by the Witton Albion goalkeeper prevented Telford scoring. In the end, Witton were deserved victors, 3 goals to the good. Another side not to be taken lightly is Yeovil Town. They were the next visitors, and Telford scraped through with Tim Langford getting his team's only goal. A trip to newly elected Stalybridge Celtic was the August bank holiday treat, but in a game that saw Telford's good and bad points, Stalybridge shared the points and 6 goals. Sean Parrish, Ian Bembo and Steve Ferguson, the Telford scorers. The superb setting and daunting prospect of Wycombe Wanderers was next on the menu. Adams Park and the 3,500 spectators saw Telford go down 4-0, despite holding Martin O'Neill's side for the opening 20 minutes. It was a game BBC Television covered for their South East viewers. Former Telford player Andy Kerr rubbed salt in the wounds by scoring against his old team. Farnborough Town visited the Bucks Head next, and Telford really got the bit between their teeth. Debut player Roy Green, signed from Atherstone, soon became a fan's favourite by scoring early on in a game that provided lots of excitement for the fans, but was no doubt causing mixed feelings for Jerry Daly and the Farnborough Town manager. Telford won convincingly in the end by 6 goals to 3.
I think we should have. Our defence sort of went a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde, I think, and 4-3 looked a bit dodgy. But I think once we scored the 5th goal, it never looked any doubt then.
Talk me through your opening goal.
From what I can remember, it's a free kick, which Steve Ferguson took, and then the 2 centre-half players who sort of kept on changing, Mark and me, said that. Sort of I could hear them talking in the box very easy days. You pick them up this time, and then I went to sort of go to the back, and then Fergie took the kick, and I sort of went to the front and just jumped up and obviously put my head to there and trying to the direction of the goals and see it going. And so obviously I was very pleased, and that was in the first 15 minutes. So from then you're a bit all tensed up, and you want to impress, but also you don't want to make a fool of yourself or try and do too much. So that made me relax a bit.
Perhaps the thing that may have overshadowed the fact that you scored the 2 goals on your debut, you also, of course, made Sean Parrish's goal for him. Now that is a goal they'll talk about for years to come.
Yes, I mean I can't really much about it because it's so exciting. How many 9 goals? And you think to yourself, oh goodness me, I hope you do like this every week. But yes, it's all about linking up with the players, and it seemed to sort of read me and I was reading them. And then we've done some nice 1-2s, and Sean scored a lovely goal.
Kettering Town were the wrong end of a 3-1 drubbing just 3 days later. Tim Langford, Martin Myers and Steve Ferguson, the Telford scorers. Tim Langford particularly pleased about his goal.
I think the Kettering game, we did look as if we'd score every time we went forward, and as a personal point of view, it was the best performance that I've been involved in since I've been at the club by streets.
Give Kettering all the credit due to them. I know they've got problems at the club, but they played exceptionally well.
They did. When you look at the likes of Wycombe, Stalybridge and Yeovil, they played a lot better than what they did, and they lost. Really. I thought we played Wycombe off the park, but they just caught us on the break and showed us how to put the chances away.
Farnborough Town, of course. I've got to keep mentioning that side.
Yeah, it was
6-3.
It was a entertaining game for the fans, which is nice to see. A bit disappointing that we, at the 4-1 up, that we did give two goals away. But
well, you say that, but they've been threatening right from kicking, haven't they?
Yeah, they did. But we were winning 3-0, and really then I suppose the game was ours, and we've just got to keep it tight at the back and give nothing away. But unfortunately, it seems to be the same old story that we did.
Manager Jerry Daly has mixed feelings about the season so far for Telford United.
Well, as a matter of fact, the only performance that I was disappointed about was the Slough game. I thought that was the worst performance for them. I've been very encouraged by what I've seen. Taking into account that we've got the amount of new players that we've brought in and how young they are. I've been very surprised with the likes of Marcus Bigness, 18 years of age, coming in and doing a tremendous job. And I'm even playing the boy out of position. It's the only place that I can find for him in the side at the moment, and I don't want to leave him out at this given time. I think he's too good of a player. I'll eventually see him as either being a midfield player or a right full back. Preferably a midfield player. I'll be leaning towards that. But he's got a tremendous amount of ability. I wanted to bring Andy Lee back to the club because I felt as if we were a bit too nice. And I wanted some...
Saying Andy's not.
Well, I wanted somebody who was a bit nasty there, and Andy is nasty. I mean, the other people I have played alongside him, I mean, the likes of Nigel Beaumont and Steve Ferguson, they're very nice people, you know, very good players. I mean, Steve Ferguson, after all the time in the World for, that's why I made him captain of the club. I think he's a brilliant player. But I just wanted somebody who was a bit nasty, so that's why I brought Andy Lee back.
As you heard, Mr. Nasty is what Andy Lee's been nicknamed. Roy Green lost his shoe on a recent run up the Wrekin on a training mission. He's now called Cinderella. So what names do the other players have for others? And in fact, what do the players call their gaffer Jerry Daly? Indiana Jones? Donald Duck? Or this character from Snow White? Steve Ferguson is the club skipper. He knows a bit about football. In fact, he knows, you know.
I don't know really.
He does really, Steve Ferguson there. Back to the action then, and fellow Cup giant killers of the past, Woking, newly promoted to the Vauxhall Conference, were the next visitors to the Bucks Head. Woking, under the guidance of Jeff Chappell, paraded one of football's most prolific scorers of the past, Trevor Senior. Senior, now in the twilight of his career, was still nonetheless a potential threat to Telford, whose early defensive displays did leave question marks on the club's ability to do well in Tony Esp's first season in the chair. Not surprisingly then, Telford soon found themselves trailing to the Surrey side. It was left to Steve Ferguson to lead his team by example. Andy Lee takes up the story of the match.
Oh, it was an excellent goal. He timed it right. I mean, we've gone 2-0 down, and if we had left it a little bit later, it could have caused us problems. We got back straight away. I mean, superb goal on his bad foot, so-called bad foot. And he's at an absolute screaming into the top corner.
And of course, his second goal, that was from the free kick that you took. First time you've encountered the new law, of course, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were all trying to get the brains together to see how we can, you know, rectify this new rule and get round it. But just looking at it, I mean, you've got to look at a competent player taking it, and Steve is an extremely competent player, and he's just picked his spot. I mean, usually some of us are just blasted up the wall and hope for something to come out of it. But Steve just picked his spot and put it right in the corner. Great goal.
Of course, he failed to get his hat-trick, which I'm sure he'll be annoyed about himself. But,
he knows himself he's not at the penalty, right? But, you know, at the end of the story, at the end of the day, he's hit two great goals, and you've got to take great credit for the two goals he scored.
Tim Langford had scored for Telford earlier with this effort. Skills personified in a match that ended Telford United 3, Woking 3. Telford travelled to Runcorn next, and on a miserable night alongside the Mersey, Runcorn won by 3-1. Ian Bembo scored again, but Telford had Steve Ferguson sent off for a second bookable offence. From Merseyside, the long trip to Tyneside followed, and Jerry Daly dropped Darren Acton for the Gateshead match, giving a conference debut to former Aston Villa youngster Damien Grange. Grange soon found confidence and put up a pleasing display in goal for the visitors. Once again, Ian Bembo found the target, and Telford returned with 3 valuable points. Meanwhile, Wycombe Wanderers were beginning to run away with the title race, even as early as October. Back to the Bucks Head, and Kidderminster Harriers, complete with many ex-Telford players in the ranks, provided the 1,700 crowd who watched this local derby with an entertaining match. Jerry Daly continued to give Damien Grange preference over Darren Acton, and Grange pulled off a number of top-class saves, including this one captured for all to see, not only by our cameras, but the BBC as well. The Telford boss had found a new centre-half for the side. Nigel Niblett was signed from VS Rugby, and as time went on, Niblett was to prove a shrewd purchase for the club. Oh, by the way, Ian Bembo scored for Telford in what was to be a 1-1 draw. A series of injuries affected players from now on, beginning with a long-term injury to Tim Langford, who damaged his shoulder blade in the 2-2 draw away to Boston United. A trip to Stafford Rangers quickly followed for the Drinkwise Cup. It ended 0-0 after extra time, added to which Sean Parrish was sent off for a second bookable offence. Somewhat harshly, I would say. Sean Parrish is seen here having treatment on a leg injury.
This has been stretched a little bit and causing a little bit of pain if I press there. It's right across the joint line. It's one that supports the joint from the outside and stops the leg flapping round inside.
Well, it's your left leg that was the one you scored that cracker against Farnborough.
That's it, yeah.
So what's different about that one compared with this one? Not a lot of meat on it, is there?
No, I know.
It's standing leg.
Standing leg.
It's a wooden leg. It's wooden.
It's the wooden one. Whilst on the subject of the Farnborough goal, take his mind off his pain, Clem. I mean, it's a super goal. You had it just right.
Well, I did well to keep it down, the lad said, but I don't score many, so it was just a bit of a hit and up, really. I've scored 2 this season with the one at Staley Bridge as well, but it's going well, we're playing well, we're creating chances. And like I said, me and Martin scored 3, I scored 2, so the goals are coming from midfield as well as up front.
I can now reel off loads of cliches about the FA Cup. I won't, except to say that Telford drew St Albans City of the Diadora League in the 4th qualifying round of this season's competition. The St Albans players stood to gain £10,000 per player if they reached the 3rd round proper, whilst for many of the Telford players this was to be their FA Cup debut, but any dreams that Telford may have had were to be shattered. In the early stages, St Albans seemed overawed by the occasion, and Telford should really have wrapped things up, but as often happens, mistakes were made. And then this. Steve Ferguson is judged to have fouled David Ross. Penalty, says the referee, and up stepped Alan Cockram to fire the visitors in front on the half hour. This fired up St Albans, and Dave Pritchard did well to deny them with his timely clearance. Then Steve Scott made it a miserable half-time, denying Ian Bembo Telford's equaliser. At last, Telford did equalise. Steve Ferguson is brought down in the area and made no mistake with his spot kick. Telford tried to snatch the game, but then fate was to take its part, and controversy was to reign supreme. You can now see exclusively this incident. Telford's Ian Bembo and St Albans player Bob Dowie go for the ball. Bembo is poleaxed with this class of heads. Now let's watch it again. Did Bob Dowie go for the ball, or did he go for Ian Bembo? The crowd were incensed. Dowie recovered whilst Bembo was assisted off the field, and Telford were now down to 10 men. Notice that the referee's main concern was for the welfare of the players, but having seen that Dowie was up and about again, the referee did not show a card. Perhaps he didn't see the incident. The Telford club doctor did, and I have to say Dr. Paul Spencer left his seat in the stand and was attending to Ian Bembo almost before the Telford striker hit the ground. Disaster was to follow for Telford, and they were out of the FA Cup. St Albans smelt victory, and 5 minutes into injury time, Dean Williams found Steve Clark on the edge of the box, Clark making no mistake to put the ball past Damien Grange and score the winner. Telford United 1, St Albans City 2. The St Albans players and travelling fans were ecstatic. As for Ian Bembo recovering in the bathtub after that clash of heads.
Are you aware of the attention you got after the incident? Well, like I said, the only thing I can remember is my breakfast. I can't remember anything from the game. I can't even remember coming to the game. So, you know, if he's done it on purpose, then it's gone now.
Jerry Daly kept his players in the dressing room for a time after the game. We went privileged to his post-match discussion. Life at the Buckshead continued, and just 3 days later, Stafford Rangers got hammered by Telford with a resounding display from the team. What a way to bounce back from defeat, winning 5-2 in the Drinkwise Cup. Injuries to key players forced changes, including former YTS player Stuart Clark recalled to the side. He notched a hat-trick. And after full-time training at Stoke City, Darren Acton was back in the first team in place of Damien Grange, whilst Andy Cook played his part too. Here's Stuart Clark.
Yeah, it's the way the Rovers really, no one expects to do that, no player expects to come back after, well, I think it was 5 months before I had a game at Bridge North, and then only had 3 games at Bridge North. To come back and score 3, I think the squad was feeling really good. The old team as a whole, they battled well, and I think we weren't expected to win, I don't think anyway, and that sort of it made everyone feel a bit more relaxed, there was no pressure, so we just went out and done the biz.
No, you got the first goal in the 6th minute of the game, and then you were in the second half before you notched your hat-trick. It was all over England.
Oh yeah, when the first one in, I was a bit shocked really. I didn't know what to do. I was a bit the art was Jerry, I was just expected to do a job. Jerry didn't really say he wanted me to push on, but seeing as I hadn't played for so long, I've been trying to get up and down as much as I can. And the second one was just a one-off really. It come over to me, and the first thought was to get a shot off. Luckily my touch was quite good, and the keeper just couldn't get there. And when the third one in, it was a great dummy from Cookie. I mean, he worked tremendously well all night. And I called over and lucky enough he heard me.
A backheader from Roy Green and a delighted Andy Cook also got a goal apiece. But the night belonged to hat-trick hero Stuart Clark, one of 7 players in the Telford side, not yet 21 years of age. Back to conference action, and Altrincham were to put up stiff opposition for Jerry Daly's injury-hit squad. But perhaps now's the time to put referees in the spotlight. Are the standards in the Vauxhall Conference lower than the Football League? The official in charge of the Altrincham game is interviewed before the kick-off.
No, I wouldn't say that, because obviously all the referees that referee on the GM Vauxhall Conference are Football League officials. So I would say the standard is extremely high on the Vauxhall Conference.
Now, you see a lot of situations where linesmen in the Football League invariably are Vauxhall Conference referees. Technically they look very good. When you put them in the middle, they leave themselves wide open to criticism. I won't mention names.
Well, you see, again, the standard of lining on the GM Vauxhall Conference has got to be high, because all these guys are referees on contributory leagues. Right, so they're all experienced referees and linesmen in their own right. So I would say generally the standard is quite high. Obviously, you're not going to please everybody all of the time. We're not in it for that. But generally speaking, I think the standard's quite high.
So what motivates you as a referee when you come to a match?
Well, I approach it same as I do now, always smiling. Always smile. If they want to play, I'll stand back and let them play, and we'll get no problems. If they don't want to play, we'll get problems.
Hey, referee! 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 Hey, linesman. Linesman. You're working together here. What about the push in the back in the box in there, eh?
Obviously, you're not going to please everybody all of the time. We're not in it for that. But generally speaking, I think the standard's quite high.
Referee John Barlow there. On the subs bench for the Altrincham game was Ian Bembo, more or less recovered from the St Albans incident. And it wasn't long before Jerry Daly was shouting his team to victory. Steve Ferguson continued with his scoring rate, whilst a delighted Marcus Bignett scored his first goal for the club. Telford 2, Altrincham 1. A goalless draw at Bromsgrove, followed by a convincing 3-1 win over Macclesfield, brought more cheer to supporters as Ian Bembo returned to Notch. Habit-forming Marcus Bignett did it again, while Stuart Bowen showed his undoubted tenacity to score his first goal since joining Telford from Coventry City. Telford United 3, Macclesfield 1. For a while, Telford had some mixed results, home and away, including Northwich Victoria putting Telford out of the Drinkwise Cup. They won 3-1, although Stuart Bowen did get Telford's goal. That was on a dismal December night. By December, Slough Town led the pack, chasing Wycombe Wanderers. Slough coming to the Bucks Head, hoping to do the double over Telford. For a while they led through this goal, and although Telford tried hard, it wasn't hard enough, and it looked as though another home defeat was on the cards. Tim Langford had other ideas and scored this goal with virtually the last kick of the match. Telford United 1, Slough Town 1. Frustrations, and plenty of them, over the Christmas period. Both the Boxing Day game scheduled at the Bucks Head against Stafford Rangers and the Christmas Monday game at Merthyr Tydfil were called off at the last moment by the referee because of frosty conditions. However, the uppercut to hit the club on Boxing Day was the news that top scorer Ian Bembo had put in a written transfer request.
I've had a discussion with the manager, and at the moment the finances are not there for a contract for next year. He can't make a commitment, so he said that the situation is I'm available at the moment. And if somebody has got the money to secure a future for myself, then I've got to look after myself at the end of the day.
Whilst most people would agree with you there, obviously you have got to look after yourself, but surely perhaps letting the team down?
Well, to be fair, letting the team down, I don't think so in a way. Because the manager's got a fair enough squad here, where you've got the likes of Roy Green, that does exactly the same job as himself. He's got Timmy that's still working hard, he's got Shaw Francis doing a good job, he's got Andy Cook, and in a roundabout way, if I bring some income in the club as well as securing a future for myself, I think that's helping the club.
Obviously, putting yourself in the shop window, you've got to do well to attract the attention of other clubs.
Well, that's it, that's down to me now, isn't it?
Anyway, Tony, from your point of view, you don't want Ian to go?
No, we don't, no.
But to be perfectly honest, you know, we've got to be fair to everybody, and we can't start renegotiating contracts when they're halfway through. This wouldn't be fair to the rest of the squad.
Now, he wants more money. You're categoric that you're not going to give him more money because of the problems it would cause with other players, possibly. Snowball effect.
Well, not necessarily that, but it obviously could cause problems, but we just don't think it's the way to do business, basically.
1993 arrived and no games meant no income for Telford United. They depended on the now successful Lucky Letters lottery. Here's promotions manager Nigel Addison.
This week sees the total prize money since we started topping £10,000.
What sort of people have been winning this money?
Well, it's amazing. It varies week to week. We've had weeks with a single winner and weeks with 12 winners, and we've had individuals picking up elements, therefore, from £40 up to £532 for an individual. And it's all walks of life, as you would really expect with anything connected with a football club.
An important game coming up against Northwich Victoria. They arrived at the Bucks Head as the informed side of the Vauxhall Conference, having strung together a 6-game winning run. But Telford had a revenge mission following the Drinkwise Cup exit at the Drillfield. This, though, was the much-awaited FA Trophy encounter. It's 4 years since Telford last went to Wembley. Andy Lee is the sole surviving member of the side from that victorious day. He lined up against Northwich and Telford took their game at the visitors early on. It was Andy Lee who stormed in powerfully in the 4th minute to head Telford into the lead. 20 minutes later and the visitors levelled through Malcolm O'Connor. On the hour, Andy Lee suffered a rib injury and Martin Myers replaced him. Within 30 seconds of coming on, Myers had restored the lead for Telford, latching onto a Bembo pass to slide the ball past Tony Bullock at the near post. Northwich tried everything to retrieve the game, but Darren Acton was in good form. The final 10 minutes of the game, it was all Telford. Roy Green had numerous efforts saved by Tony Bullock. Ian Bembo twice held his head in shame as Bullock saved. Then Tim Langford had a header screen wide of the post. A superb fight back by Telford, who should have had a hatful. Telford United 2, Northwich Victoria 1. The Northwich victory was an obvious lift for the club and its supporters. Had Telford lost to the Cheshire side, all cup and trophy competition success would have to wait until next season. As it was, Diodora League team Kingstonian were drawn out of the hat for the next round of the FA Trophy, away. Meanwhile, it was 4 weeks since Telford actually completed in a conference match. That was prior to Christmas at home to Slough Town. Memories of previous seasons came flooding back when lowly Runcorn were the visitors in the return conference fixture. The reason? Ken McKenna, who played over 200 games during 2 spells with Telford, was making his debut for Runcorn, having been signed earlier in that week from Barrow. Ken McKenna made lots of friends during his time at the Bucks Head, and although he appeared to have put on weight, it was still the same Ken, competitive and vociferous as ever. A strong wind made conditions difficult for the players, least of all the Runcorn goalkeeper. His kicking got little favour from the gusty blow, and he barely cleared his area at times. Tim Langford was again a surprise inclusion for Telford. The striker was suspected of suffering from a condition known as Gilmore's groin, a hernia to you and I. Nonetheless, Tim got stuck in as usual, and 9 minutes into the Runcorn match, he is brought down in the area. Steve Ferguson stepped up and once again fired home from the spot to give Telford the lead. Ken McKenna and his new side went at Telford, and Darren Acton was well positioned to save as the visitors tried to get on equal terms. Some of their hustle and bustle meant they were taking no prisoners. Ask Stuart Bowen. Ouch! Lenny Lloyd was soon on the pitch though, applying his customary tonic. Notice then that the referee awarded a free kick against the Telford left back. 5 minutes into the second half and Darren Acton can only do this with a corner. The ball is promptly fired goalwards, Darren is beaten and Runcorn equalised through Connor. This line of despair soon dissolved and Telford bounced back. Dave Pritchard takes possession and sends in a perfect searching pass to the edge of the Runcorn box. Marcus Bignett races through and is brought down. Steve Ferguson becomes Telford's leading scorer by firing home his second penalty of the match. Telford went close to increasing the lead over Runcorn. Sean Parrish sets up Tim Langford. His effort is sliced onto the crossbar by a Runcorn defender. Langford then gives Parrish this chance, but he lacks a little confidence and the ball is held by the keeper. Ken McKenna then tests Darren Acton at the other end and goes close for Runcorn and pulls off a super save to deflect this effort over his crossbar. Everton fanatic McKenna, as I mentioned, was as vociferous as ever during the match. Sorry, Ken, say that again. Oh, I understand now. Part of the deal you made with Runcorn was that you'd be able to score against your old team. Oh dear. Tell the referee about it, perhaps he can help. Anyway, Ken, there were lots of your old friends and fans at the match. Have you got a message for them?
I just wish them all the best for the new year, and hopefully we can beat them today. But no,
They wouldn't agree with you there, I'm afraid.
No, probably not. But I'll be seeing a few friends afterwards in the bar, win, lose, or draw. So that'll be nice anyway.
The final score was Telford United 2, Runcorn 1. Not a dream debut for this old favourite, but 3 valuable points for Jerry Daly's team. The week that followed the Runcorn victory included news that Tim Langford had entered the Nuffield Hospital in Shrewsbury to undergo surgery to repair his hernia problem. Jerry Daly was then faced with possibly 6 weeks without the ace striker. Added to which, Sean Francis asked for a transfer, as did defender Nigel Beaumont. The manager sent Francis on loan to Worcester City, whilst Jason Wolverson came in the opposite direction to the Bucks Head. Wolverson may well have made his debut at Twerton Park in the conference game against Bath City, but following the FA Cup replay between Bristol Rovers, who share the stadium, and Aston Villa, the pitch was, as shown on the television coverage of that cup tie, nothing short of a quagmire. Understandably, the Bath ground staff could not prevent the Telford game from being postponed. So yet another blank weekend for Telford, conference-wise, though Derby County did provide the team with a full-scale practice match in preparation for the fast-approaching trophy encounter at Kingstonian. January 30th arrived, and so did the second round of the FA Trophy. Kingstonian of the Deodora League are managed by one of non-league's colourful characters, Chris Kelly, nicknamed the Leatherhead Lip many years ago. Kelly moved up the road to Kings Meadow, the complex in Kingston-on-Thames, and brought much amusement when, in the pre-match hype, he said, "Telford is managed by the boy Daly, isn't they? Yeah, mate, they are, isn't they?" Seriously though, Chris Kelly held Jerry Daly and the Telford team in high regard and was visibly nervous waiting for the players and travelling fans to arrive. Kings Meadow is owned by the Royal Borough Council, leased to the Deodora Club. The pitch is probably unique in that it was constructed on a lake using Swiss engineering techniques. Literally, when there is too much water on the surface, it gets pumped below the surface, whilst when water is needed, the groundsman pumps it back up again. Quite original, that. Having constructed the playing area, the rest of the project was completed to include not only the stands and so on, but also the all-weather pitch and a banqueting hall. Telford United and their fans arrived an hour before kick-off. Among the throng attending the game were scouts from Arsenal and Cambridge United, and one of Jerry Daly's former teammates from Daly's playing days for the Boston T-Men in America. For the match, Jerry Daly selected Darren Acton, David Pritchard, Marcus Bignett, Andy Lee, Nigel Niblett, Sean Parrish, Martin Myers, Steve Ferguson, Ian Bembo, Stuart Bowen, Roy Green, and the substitutes Jason Wolverson and Stuart Clark. The road to Wembley then continues. From the kick-off, it wasn't long before Darren Acton had this to deal with. And in Telford's first attack as such, Ian Bembo is fouled just on the left of the Kingstonian penalty area. Free kick to Telford. Steve Ferguson lofts it over, and in lunges Nigel Niblett to give his side a dream start to score his first goal for the club. 2 minutes played and Telford were ahead. Not quite the routine practice in training, but much to the delight of the visiting fans who loved it when plans to score early came together. The home side fans then cheered as they thought Darren Acton had been nudged over the line by their version of Nat Lofthouse. They were soon silenced by the ref's whistle. Darren was clearly fouled. The Surrey side had their own set piece, but perhaps they need a bit more practice after this effort 15 minutes into the game. Telford countered with this superb run from Marcus Bignett. His centre was only partially cleared, but Dave Pritchard cut in and forced a corner. That too is only partially cleared to Steve Ferguson, but Ferguson's shot is off target. We saw a lot of the yellow card in this match, the referee not allowing the game to flow as much as the fans would have liked, or Stuart Bowen for that matter. Kingstonian, for their part, tried to get the game into order, and Solomon Eriemo was beginning to cause a few headaches from back. He's blameless, though, as Sean Parrish goes over on his right ankle and has to be helped off the field by Lenny Lloyd and Clem McBride. The dreaded injury jinx strikes again. Parish ended up in plaster and was replaced by Stuart Clark, who soon slotted into place. Just prior to half-time, Marcus Bignett once again under the scrutiny of a number of league scouts went close with this volley. Half-time, Kingstonian 0, Telford United 1. Steve Ferguson was then mysteriously booked in the second half, the yellow card being produced by the referee after an initial delay. Perhaps because the crowd baited the official, the significance of the Telford skipper's caution became apparent later. It took Steve over the 20-point margin, and it was likely that he would miss the next round of the trophy should Telford beat Kingstonian and progress. Telford had Darren Acton to thank for a couple of good saves as Chris Kelly's side worked at the game. Then on 79 minutes, Dave Pritchard found Ian Bembo wide on the right. Bembo curled in a cross to Roy Green, who neatly turned his marker and fired through the legs of the sweeper, the ball out of the keeper's reach. It nestled in the back of the net. Nicely, thank you. Against the run of play it may have been, but Green's strike put Telford 2 up, much to the players' delight, especially Andy Lee, who shows us his variation of the Watusi. Kingstonian tried hard and eventually pulled one back with this superb volley from Roddy Braithwaite. That was less than a minute remaining. It was too late then, and the final result 2-1 saw Telford going into the hat for round 3. They were in the last 16 of the competition, added to which Jerry Daly was named Vauxhall Conference Manager of the Month. It had been a happy day for the team and fans alike. Tim Langford, working for the BBC during the match, couldn't wait to tell listeners back in Shropshire about the game he missed. As for Nigel Niblett, he's settled in well at the club and is confident of better things to come.
Well, I hope we can get to the trophy final and win it. The league's still there. Wickham aren't untouchable yet. Hard task though. Oh yeah, obviously. You've only got to look at the league table to see that, but we'll keep fighting till the end and get as high as we can. Hopefully runners up, if not top.
Nigel Niblett there. At the end of last season, young Marcus Bignett thought his footballing world had come to an end when he was released by Birmingham City.
You know, to get up in the league, you know, finish as high as we can, and you know, we've got to look for the FA Trophy. I mean, realistically, you know, we want the FA Trophy. Maybe the league's gone out the way a bit with Wickham, but you know, FA Trophy could be Telford's this season.
Marcus Bignett, and with that attitude and confidence, can Telford progress? Let's hope so anyway. Well, the season so far has certainly been disrupted, and at the end of January, the Telford season was only just at the halfway point in terms of matches played. How they do progress will hopefully be captured in our next production of Back to the Bucks Head video. Thanks for watching and your support. Bye for now.
It's nice not to have the pressures of the job, but to be involved and do see the club in a different light and see the matches in a different light, and you look at football completely differently through different eyes, and it's quite nice, and you can see the faults, and I wish at times I could have seen these faults when I was chairman of the club, but you can't have everything.
Well, you lived the club during your regime here.
That's right, yes. I mean, for 17 years. I just did everything. I was always here early and late and went through every motion and saw everything was switched on and switched off, and the tea was made and the electric was on and the water was hot and everything, and football became a secondary thing at the end, which was sad really. I was more interested in the other things than the football at times, although I loved the football side of it.
Now, your successor Tony Asp is obviously talks about your abilities in the past and your history. Now Tony obviously and the rest of his board got a long way to go to bring the club onto the real financial footing they need. The encouragement obviously is there as and when it's needed from them.
Yes, I think they're capable of doing the job. The unfortunate part about it is that football and life generally and business generally has changed over the last 5 or 6 years, and I noticed it changed dramatically towards the end of my time as chairman of the club, and they're going to find it harder and they're going to have to do different things, and that's one of the reasons that brought me to the decision that I've been doing it one way for years and years and years, and there's some changes made, and I think you get stuck into a way of doing it, and I wouldn't say I wasn't capable of making the changes, but changes are always difficult to do, so I thought it was time to have a change and let somebody else have a go. I also got a little bit stale at the job and been doing it for such a long while.
Well, of course, you've got a history of success over the years with many trips to Wembley. What was your most memorable occasion?
The most memorable occasion in all the time I was at this club with Stan Staunton when we went to play Preston, and we were 1-0 down and came away 4-1 winners, and I think that was great at the time, because it's a thing that was an everyday match, and the thing that we weren't supposed to go and do, win at Preston with all the glory that they had. And Tom Finney said after the game, he says one of the finest teams he'd ever seen throughout his career, and I felt on that day we played brilliantly, and I think we could have beaten anybody on that day. It was brilliant.
Gerald, best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.